As Andrew said, I wear a number of different hats in life. I am a Baptist minister in Upminster in Essex. I feel at home tonight. It's not often that I get to do work in Essex, but tonight it's great, even though it's virtual, to be in the county of Essex with everybody. But I also run an organisation called Non-Perfect Dad. I've spent 20 years working with organisations to help them further their ability to engage with parents in their organisations. And most of the time now I work Non-Perfect Dad works in what we might kind of a little bit obnoxiously call high performance environments. So as you can see there, I get to work with both teams in Manchester and a few other high profile teams. I'm not claiming it's why West Ham and Manchester City won European Cups last year, but both clubs did use me. Obviously, I'm only joking. That's nothing to do with why they won European Cups, but I do work with quite a lot of Premiership football clubs in both the girls and boys pathways. And so it's a privilege to come tonight to share with you perhaps some of the insights that we see there that are applicable across all sports environments as to how we can help parents engage with their child's sporting journey in ways which help them thrive. If you've got Menti to work, why don't we quickly pop a pin where you are in Essex? This is a map that I got of Essex earlier today. I don't know if it'll let me do it or not. Let's see if it'll let me do it, because I am in Harold Hill, which I don't know if it counts, lets me do it. No, it doesn't let me do it. That's annoying because I'm the host. How frustrating. But is it Upminster in Essex or not? Well, that's one of the big debates, isn't it? So we've definitely got somebody up there in Colchester, a few other people around there, someone around. I can't even see on that map where that is. My geography of Essex isn't great, but pop that down so we can see where you are calling in from. And like we say, we're really grateful for you being here tonight. After today, 45 minutes of me speaking, 15 minutes of questions. We guarantee that your child will always be selected for every team that they want to be selected for the team of their dreams. They'll be totally undamaged by their football experience, and they'll always be a winner. And we're also going to learn how to make pink fluffy unicorns fly. And my beloved Arsenal are definitely going to finish top this season. No, obviously, I'm joking about all of that. You don't need me to tell you in sport there's no cast iron, silver bullet fixes. It was interesting. I was on Facebook earlier today and an ad popped up because, you know, when you're in sport, Facebook, the algorithm tells you wants lots of sport, and this warm-up pad thing for getting footballers to move their feet in a certain way. And it was almost the wording was turn your child into a Premiership success by using this warm-up mat, as if this kind of sexy silver bullet would solve all the problems. There is no such thing of that in any sporting world. And when we're going to talk about parent-child relationship tonight, we're talking about a really complex, dynamic relationship. So there are no quick fixes or easy solutions. However, there are things that we can all do, both as parents and coaches, that we can really help our child develop and nurture their potential for however long they stay in football. And also, more importantly, so that those skills that they learn are transferable across the whole of their life set. So today is really about how we nurture potential within young people. You're already doing that, because I see the list. Most of your coaches are already nurturing potential in the children that you coach. And so I'm hopeful that today will add some extra bolt-ons as to how you can do that. But you're also all parents. And I think that's where it gets a little bit trickier, because it's a lot more emotive for our own children. It's a lot trickier, particularly if you're coaching your own child. I've coached my own children. That's never easy. And so that role can then impact how we nurture our own children's potential, and can ultimately have a bit of impact on the team that we coach as well. So we're going to definitely cover important topics like that. It's a Rugby World Cup starting this weekend. As the All Blacks, statistically, the most successful sports team in history. Someone's put their thumbs down for the Rugby World Cup stuff. Don't worry, England are going to be out very, very quickly, I think. Statistically, the All Blacks are the most successful sports team in history of any sports team. Incredible, considering how small their player pool is. And a few years ago, there was a book written by James Kerr called Legacy, which, if your children are teenagers, I'd really encourage you to get them to read it, because it's a great book about culture and what it takes to turn your potential into something that's successful. And in there, one of the things they talk about was how that before the book was written, the All Blacks had a dip in form, which meant that they weren't winning as much by their own high standards. And one of the reasons they realised that they weren't winning as much is because they'd changed their selection policy. And they had changed their selection policy from well, basically, it says it a bit stronger in the book, but I won't say it quite as it says in the book, just in case you've got children listening. But it's no Muppets is their selection policy. They wanted to get back to a selection policy of no Muppets, because what they'd done is they'd got into this habit of selecting the biggest, strongest, fastest, most technically able person, but they hadn't thought about the character that went alongside that. And you and I, we both know what it's like to work with a Muppet, don't we? Muppets might be the most skilled person in our work team, coaching team, family, but they are draining, exhausting, tiring. They create conflict. They take the joy out of coaching. They take the joy out of being in a team. They're the sort of people that when you walk into the office, you're relieved they've got a day off. You're like, oh, phew, they're not here today, because their character doesn't match with their talent. And the All Blacks realised that when they were in their dip of form, they had forgot to select based on character. And then we've got Sir Alex Ferguson there, and regardless of your football allegiances, and yes, looking at some of the stories that come out of his camp now, we would certainly want to question some of his coaching techniques. However, easily the manager of a generation. And he said this in his book To Lead: if I could choose between two players, one that had exceptional talent but lacked grit and desire, or another that had average talent but exceptional grit and desire, I would always select the latter. And I find that fascinating that both the All Blacks and Sir Alex Ferguson character, mindset, became a crucial part of the development of the people in their environment. And that's, I think, the gift and role of parents. And so I want to firstly say thank you. Thank you for what you do as parents to nurture the talent and potential within your children. I'm going to risk this all going wrong by trying to stop screen sharing for a moment, if it'll let me do that. If I can remember how. Oh yes, if I come here, I'm going to skip. So actually, I'm going to ask you just to do something just a little bit weird and cheesy, if that's okay. I'd like to. You can put your cameras on if you want to, but certainly unmute your microphones and join me in doing something. If my dad was here, he'd be so cross about. My dad was in the armed forces all his life, had a really high sense of British reserve. He hates public displays of emotion. In fact, hates any display of emotion, my dad. He'd be very cross that I was asking good volunteers like yourself to do this on a Monday evening. But I'd like you to give each other a round of applause, please. A bit of a cheesy team's ovation. So come on, let me see some of those mics unmuted so we can definitely. Come on. Mark's just chilling on the bed.
I think Mark's in bed.
Mark's brilliant. Thank you. I do. My father's done quite a massive display of public emotion on a Monday evening, isn't it? Seriously though, as much as I love the fact that you're all just clapped a computer and the people in your household are like, what you're doing, you weirdo. But also in all seriousness, I knew that was going to go wrong. I accidentally closed all my windows down. Oh no, I didn't. Oh, phew. Let me just click share again. But genuinely, I'm a grassroots coach. I coach a different sport. I coach hockey, but I do know just what an incredible effort goes in to ensuring that the children in your care have quality provision. I thank you for that. Can you see my screen again now, Andrew? Has that come back?
Yep, absolutely fine. Thanks, Rich. Thanks.
Brilliant. I think I'm not on it anymore, but that's okay. I've got a bit of a radio face. So one of the questions that I ask parents is, and during lockdown, I took up doing these weird little doodles, and you can catch up more of those on Instagram if you follow me on Instagram, Non-Perfect Dad. Is one of the challenges I think for every season that a sports parent starts off is actually, what do you really want from your kid for this season? Do you want them to grow in developing the characteristics and qualities that we know make them good footballers and good human beings, or do you want to fill trophy cabinets? And I think the challenge of youth sport is, particularly at grassroots, but at any level, in lots of sports, is how much the kind of adult joy of winning and success gets in the way of genuine person development. Okay. Now, let me be very, very clear. I have no problem with winning. My son played his first adult game of rugby this weekend, having left school in July, and he's played his first adult game. He played for a very good team. He played very, very well, and they won in the last 5 minutes of the game. And I was very, very pleased they won. I am not against winning at all. What I'm about, though, is primarily developing and nurturing talent. And actually, so are most of the Premiership academies that children, very few lucky children, are able to get into. So let me ask you this question on Menti. This is going to be a bit like Eurovision as things go up and down. What are you hoping your child gains from this 23-24 football season? What are you hoping they gain? Confidence, resilience, coachable, football skills, leadership skills, lots of wins, new experiences, or friends? And you get to rank that in order. Okay, so you rank those in order.
Rich,
and if you're not
on,
yeah,
sorry, Rich, just to let you know, the screen that we're seeing on the computer is not in line with the app at the moment.
Oh, is it not? Oh, how
No.
is that? Let's have a look.
Well, I'm assuming it's not.
There we go. Is that better now?
That's the one. Thank you.
Okay, that's my fault for not having that in quite the right place. Let's hang on. Let me just fiddle for 2 seconds just to try and get that right. Thanks for interrupting. Right, so you should now have that. Brilliant. So we've now got a little bit of a ranking order. So we've got one person who's filled that out. That's brilliant. If you're not on Menti and you just want to chat in the group, what you're hoping for, like I say. So at the moment, confidence and coachable are quite high. Football skills is high, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with technical or tactical development being on this list, or important, by the way. I think when I coach kids, I want them to grow in their technical and tactical ability, but I also want them to grow in a bunch of this other stuff as well. So it's always it always fascinates me seeing this list grow. Look at that. You're all perfect students. You put football skills and lots of wins down the bottom. I don't mind if it's genuinely higher in your list, by the way. Confidence is a really interesting one because I find particularly kids post-pandemic are lacking a level of confidence, a level of resilience, or parents perceive that. I certainly involved in youth work at church. I would certainly say I see that as well. And yeah, we hunger for our kids to grow in that. And actually the conversations that we have with our children are significantly important to helping our kids grow those skills. Leadership skills, really, really important. Being coachable, getting loads of new experiences, loads of new friends. That's a really interesting list. Thank you. I really appreciate you filling that out. As I've already said where I'm from, but look, I am a dad. I do have 3 kids. Doesn't he love his sisters? Isn't that oozing through that photo? It's a bit of an unfair photo. That's a pre-lockdown photo, but actually, that photo does reveal a lot about our family dynamics in one quick photo. But it's a bit harsh because they've all grown up a bit now. This was them at Sports Day last year. Anya on the left is a massive perfectionist, so confidence around things that she's not good at is a real challenge. She's a hockey player. I coach her hockey, play hockey with her, which is great fun. Jess in the middle is a swimmer. We'll swim in cold water anywhere. We went up to the Lake District on holiday. She just wanted to find every cold lake she could get to and swim in it for hours on end. And she's really into amateur dramatics, and she's really a good actress. We're going to see some acting from her shortly. And Caleb on the right is a rugby nut and really enjoys his rugby. But his super strength is hard work and competitiveness. And so over the last 18 years, because he's 18 now, it's been an interesting journey to help him manage hard work. Each of their super strengths have been an interesting journey. And I think the most difficult things to help them nurture and develop healthily. I'm not here to tell you how to parent your kids. That would be rude and obnoxious. I think we want the same thing. Certainly looking at that list, we want kids who are going to nurture their talent and go as far as they can with it and take it, and that their talent influences their environment in most possible ways. But I'm not here to tell you how to do that. There's quite a lot of different ways you can do it. I'm here to chuck out some good science, some good principles, and you need to then the hard work, the homework that you have to do after tonight is to apply it to your context and to your environment that best suits you and your children. I think I've explained already, I work with loads of people. This is my dog, Boulder, lockdown puppy, worst decision of my life. He's a good looking dog, but he's a pain in the bum. I think I've got more Instagram followers than him at the moment. But this is the crazy world we live in, friends, where dogs have Instagram followers, and apparently my dog even follows 320 people. My son and daughters run this account. I don't have anything to do with it. but I would appreciate if you went and followed me, because I think I give slightly better advice than a German shorthead pointer who doesn't understand a single command or instruction. And more importantly, we live in a world where there's just so much noise out there. The reason I do Non-Perfect Dad is to help parents take the reins of that noise and be more influential over their children's lives. So let's get into this then. Look, my favourite sports story is that from golf. It's that of Katrina Douglas. Katrina Douglas won the British Open as an amateur in her early 20s, beating professional women's golfers. Now, her dad was the reason she took up golf. He was her mentor, her coach, her inspiration. And without his influence on her golf journey, she would have never taken up golf, won the British Open as an amateur, went on to become a professional women's golfer, played in the Stockholm Cup, which is the women's equivalent of the Ryder Cup, and just a phenomenal athlete. But sadly, 3 months before she won that British Open, her dad died. And back in the 80s, those few reporters who covered women's golf in those days knew her story, and they went up to her after she'd been awarded the trophy, and they said, "Your dad, he'll be looking down on you and he'll be so proud of you right now, won't he?" And she silenced them by simply saying, "No, he won't." She wanted to say, "My dad's pride was never affected by what I do with a little white ball on freshly cut grass. My dad was always proud of me." Now, I love that story, and just let that sink in for a moment. When, if you were to say to your kids tonight, what do you do that makes me proud? If they say, "I score lots of goals, I play really good at football, I get top grades at school," there's nothing wrong with us being pleased in those things. I'm pleased when my children do those things. Please don't mishear me. But my pride, the way I view my children, doesn't change at all, or certainly Katrina's didn't, and that's what I try and model in our household. Interestingly, Jess got her GCSE. Caleb got his A-level results this year. Jess got her GCSE results, and Jess bumped into a family friend of ours before she got her results. And the friend said to her, "How are your mum and dad feeling about your results?" And Jess said to this friend, "Oh, mum and dad won't care what I get." And the friend said, "Oh, yes, they say, all parents say that, but they really, really do. It really matters to them that you do really, really well." And it mattered to us a little bit, but my wife and I have been involved in enough youth work and teaching for long enough to know that it doesn't change stuff. But it was interesting to hear another parent try and say to our daughter, "Actually, your value in the home is based on the results that you get." Whereas Jess had the confidence to say, "Actually, that's not where my value comes from." I wanted her to do well because she put lots of hard work in, but that is different. And for me, I think the first thing we need to do as parents is be a harbour from everything else that's going on. Home should be a harbour that helps our children know that they are unconditionally loved and cared for, because the sports world is brilliant, but it's also brutal at times. And our kids need a space that they're able to come home, unpack the stresses and the strains, the challenges and the anxieties. I do a lot of work with the Women's Super League clubs, and I help all of the Women's Super League teams run a parent voice group for all their academies. And it's fascinating to listen to the parents' feedback about how players will come home and just get a load of stuff off their chest that they haven't been able to do among players and coaches, because they've had to hold it together, because there's a professional element to what they're doing as they're playing under 18s and under 21s professional football. But home is that harbour, and it's fascinating talking to those young people, those players, when they don't feel home is a harbour, they can't offload, and the extra mental pressure and challenge that puts them under. Of course, we're there to challenge and stretch our children. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But the first thing we are is an unconditional loving place for our children. Collins, McNamara and McCarthy did some interesting research in 2016. They looked at superstars and almost. Superstars are those who had reached the very top of their sporting career. They looked at footballers, they looked at rugby players, looked at tennis players, golfers, and almost are those who were phenomenal athletes but never broke through into the top echelons of either success or the teams that were being successful. So they looked at European Cup winners. I did a lot of work at Chelsea. Well, Chelsea were on that rich vein of winning everything. And they noticed that there were 7 similarities in the stories between superstars and almost, or 7, differences between superstars and almost. And I think 2 of them are really pertinent for us as parents. Now, I'm always really wary of I'm always really wary of research that puts human beings in boxes, because I think human beings are awesome and we don't neatly fit into boxes. However, there is some good generalizations here that help us. And I would really encourage you to go and fact check me, look up the research, because it's a really useful piece of research, and it's actually, it's not very long and it's very user friendly. The first thing they found is that superstars had a slow, often bumpy progression, whereas almost had a very smooth ride. They were labeled the next Harry Kane. Harry Kane's story is really interesting, isn't it? Because I think most of us know Harry Kane's story, just how bumpy that journey has been. And he did not have a smooth ride to becoming England's greatest ever goal scorer. And even when you look at the next person on the list, Mr. Rooney, even his journey, although he had great success in his late teenage years, still had plenty of bumps in the road, both personally and team-wise, before he reached that. And so I think for us as parents and coaches, that sometimes, because we love our kids and because we want the best for them, when they're in pain, sometimes we rush to fix that too quickly, rather than letting them be in discomfort and trying to work that out themselves. The classic would be, oh, I've forgotten a bit of kit, you need to go and get it. How many schools in the next couple of weeks, months, how many receptions in schools, if they're open? My kids are affected by this blooming concrete mess. If the schools are open, how many receptions are going to be filled with items that parents have brought in because kids have left them at home, rather than the parents learning how to deal with that challenge and work that issue through? And when I speak to coaches, and you'll have experienced this, friends, you will have experienced the parent who didn't think their kid got enough game time or wasn't selected, and they'll send an 11 o'clock on a Friday night Prosecco fueled email complaining to you or having a go at you. And whilst that behaviour is unhelpful, it's often motivated by a desire to help their child not be in pain. And actually, it's okay for our kids to get dropped. It's okay for our kids to have difficult experiences. It's okay for our kids to get injured. Not it's okay to us make our children be injured, just to be clear, but it's okay for our kids to be injured and have to journey through that. As somebody who goes into lots of sporting academies across lots of sports up and down the country, it's the email I get most. My child has just done their ACL, they're out for 6 months. How do I help them feel? How do I stop them feeling so bad? Well, what? They're going to feel bad. It's awful. They're missing out on all the sport that they love. They're seeing their mates progress. It sucks. And in the due course of time, they will see that it's fine and they'll make it back. And this was just a good bump in the road. But at that moment, it just really hurts. So, yeah, there's no magic wand to smooth that ride out. But I think the challenge is lots of parents try and smooth that ride out by trying to manipulate coaches or football environments to make that happen. My nephew is a very good little footballer, and he plays in Cambridgeshire leagues. I don't know if any of you have ever gone up and played some of those Cambridgeshire leagues where I grew up. And his coach has basically just gathered all the good kids from the local team. So they've basically just produced this super team that go around and thrash every team. And I'm just like, okay, that's lovely for the adults trying to fill trophy cabinets. But where is the good in that for the kids trying to develop a bunch of skills that go alongside that? I question that. So when my brother tells me very excitedly that they thrashed some other team 10-0 again, I just think, I'm not convinced that there's good coaching going on there. The second thing is that the superstars had supportive, encouraging, but staying distance parents, whereas almost parents had very high levels of parental interest and drive. So superstars parents were supportive, encouraging, but staying distant parents, whereas almost had very high levels of parental interest and drive. Both sets of parents came to listen to a bloke from Upminster talk on a Monday night about a football parenting. The difference is that the parents on the left could talk about something else in the car on the way to and from sport, whereas the parents on the right gave a 5-point game plan in the car on the way and a 10-point review on the car on the way home. And when we read stories of sportsmen and women, we know that those parents who are able to switch off the sport thing and just be normal parents, so that home is that harbour, those children had a better mental skill set to be able to handle with the challenges. And it's interesting, at Manchester United, one of the things that they go on and on about to their lads is, we want you to be a Manchester United Academy player 100% of the to the standard of 100% when you're with us, but we only want you to do that for 10% of your week. something like that. I haven't quite quoted that well, but basically what they're saying is, when you're here with us, we want you firing on all cylinders. When you're not here, forget football, go and do some other stuff. And Manchester United are actually quite a unique academy, by my experience, because they really encourage the boys just to go and have a kickabout with their mates on a Sunday afternoon, to do other sports, to have other interests, to go to grandma's 80th birthday parties. They try to help the families see that they don't need to be all consumed by this journey, partly because Nick Cox, their brilliant manager, knows that better footballers are well-rounded people, but also because he knows the fallout rate, even at Manchester United, is still so high that he wants these young people to have a life, and sees the benefit for them. But that's hard when we're really passionate about it, isn't it, parents? So the first thing I want to say is, let's try and be thinking about how we're supportive, encouraging, but staying distant. That doesn't mean that we don't go and watch them and cheer them on. It just means that our whole conversation and narrative isn't about sport, that we love them for more than that. And the thing is, in most of those parents who have very high levels of parental interest and drive, I very rarely meet a parent who genuinely thinks that their child is only successful if they make it into a Premiership academy or something. Of course, there's the odd idiot out there. Most parents, it's just life gets consuming, and you get into habits where success and winning and football become everything, and it's an accident. They genuinely love their kids. If their kids stop playing football the following day, they'd be disappointed. Like, I'd be disappointed if all my kids stopped doing the sports and hobbies they'd be, but they would carry on loving their children. However, what their children learn, because there's such an intensity around the football conversation at home, is my value derives from my football. And that's why we see so many teenagers drop out at 13, 14, because your teenage brain suddenly decides, I don't care what mum and dad think, and they pluck up the courage to say, I don't want to do football anymore, or swimming, or rugby, or hockey, or netball, or whatever sport it is. That's why one of the dropout rates at that age is so high. It's because kids finally get the courage to rebel from something they feel they had to do to earn mum and dad's love. I asked a bunch of East of England hockey players, some of these would be England hockey players, what do your parents do that's unhelpful? Now, if you've got the button, what phrase is on there? Try and put it by the end of the word so that we don't, it doesn't block us from reading it. But what words up there do frighten you for children saying, for children answering the question, what do your parents do that's unhelpful? I do want to point out that the word nothing is up there quite a bit, and that's fine. Lots of parents don't do anything that's unhelpful, but yes, pressure. And I think so many of these comments are pressure related. Shout from the sideline. Yeah, that's interesting. Kids either find that unhelpful or they just block it out. But I think there's some nastier ones up there. Have a closer look. I don't know if it's just too small. Stress me out. Yeah. I mean, parenting's tough, isn't it? Because it is okay for us as parents to tell our kids off. I mean, I'm certainly not from the school of thought that says we just mollycoddle them. I like the one at the bottom left that says occasionally be negative. If my tombstone says, here lies the Reverend Richard Shorter, dad of 3, he was occasionally negative, I'll take that, because that's completely true, because I am occasionally negative, because occasionally they need a kick up the butt and they need to be told to do as they're good kids most of the time. But there's stuff on here that's more than that, and you push me too hard. Criticism. On the top right, tell me I'll get fat. Compare me to the pros. Say my friends are better. Okay, that's really unhelpful. This is genuine feedback. Now, I know loads of these parents. These are well-meaning parents whose behavior has just got into a habit and a rhythm that has become exceptionally distracting for their children. And that means that home is no longer the harbour, it's no longer nurturing. It actually becomes an additional pressure in what is already a high pressure environment. So how do we do conversations based around this? And will remind me, if I don't cover it, to look at a specific coach, a parent coach, a specific scenario for a parent who is a coach. We're just going to play a little game now using Menti. What's the worst thing you can say when? I'd like you to think about your local derby. There's always local derbies in leagues. It's just part of having local leagues. In the leagues that I play in, there are local derbies. I'd like you to think about what's the worst thing you can say to your child. What is the worst thing you can say before a game? Okay, I don't know why it's saying waiting for responses, but what do you think is the worst thing that you can say before a fixture? Don't lose. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. You don't want to lose it. You have to win this day. I love the emphasis on Haas. This is a must-win. Yeah, I haven't had this is a must-win for a while. That's a good one. Big game today. Hit them hard. Yeah, I like it. This is good. We're warming up. Okay. So we've got some good, unhelpful things there. Don't lose. Some of the other things you can say is, I hope that kid who scored a hat-trick isn't playing from their team this week. You've got to be switched on, not mess about. Please tell me you're talking to under fives as well, because that'd just be brilliant. You have to win, or they'll have bragging rights. Like you're all very polite in Essex, aren't you? This is a very polite set of answers. Yeah, but I love this. You're playing this game correctly. These are the worst things you can say. That kind of huge pressure cranking up thing that you can say beforehand. Okay, let's. Oh no, someone else has just done one. Let me go back a minute. Oh no, it won't let me go back. Will it let me go back? Should let me go back. Previous slide. Break a leg. Yes, that's good. We're switching up. So what's the worst thing you can say after the fixture? Let's just pretend your child had a shocker and they lost Derby Day. What is the worst thing that you can say to them after this fixture? You were a disgrace. Do you know, I haven't had that before. That's good. It's a good answer. You're sleeping in the shed tonight. That's brilliant. That's new to me as well. I told you. Oh, that's brutal. You were terrible today. School is going to be tough on Monday. Guys, this is some great creativity that I've not seen before. You were poor today. Brilliant. Yes. So there is just lots of shaming. No V-Bucks for you. Yep. No tea tonight. Nice. I can't show my face down. You let yourself down. Oh, brilliant. You let yourself down is good, but I think you can make it. Oh, look, I can zoom in on that. That's good, isn't it? But I think you can make that even more potent. You can say, you let me down. Although I love all the little bits of shaming that are coming in there. That's really, really helpful. Look, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever said that was dreadful. You can play much better than that. Yes, good. I've never said anything this bad, but I have sometimes let sentences come out of my mouth that I think, oh, why did you say that? As I can see the impact that they had on my child. We're going to watch a short video now with my daughter Jessica. This is her doing her acting in the car. I wonder how many kids in your teams that you coach would be able to relate to this.
Do you think I played, Dad? I already think I played. Like that, just blah 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 blah.
That's terrible. Let's go back to the beginning of that. Hang on a sec. Sorry about that.
How do you think I already know how he thinks I played. Like that, Jessica. Blah blah blah.
I don't know why that's not working at all. I must have too many children on the internet. You can see those on my YouTube channel. I will skip ahead. So how do we handle... Oh, I can still hear the video in the background. That's not very helpful. How do we... Can you hear me all right, Andrew? I'm still there.
Yeah, absolutely fine, Rich.
Cool. Sorry about that, gents. But if you go on my YouTube channel, you can see Jessica's videos. First thing I want to encourage you to do is think about expressing pride and love for your children, particularly if you're their coaches. And you do this before you get to the fixture. I love watching you play. I think you're amazing. Nothing you do could make me more proud of you. Okay, I love being your coach. It's such a privilege. Saying words before they perform that just express pride and love. Think of the Katrina Douglas story. And, you know, with each of my children, I say something slightly different. And now they're all a bit older. They all take the mickey out of it a little bit, but they would moan and miss it if it wasn't there. Okay, so express pride and love on the way. Secondly, if you remember nothing else from this session, please ask them this question. This is the question. What do you want from me on game day or training day? This question is taken from my #1 Amazon best-selling book, which is 40 questions for parents to ask their kids that are character-focused rather than results-focused. But this first question is really important. I ask my kids this question all the time. Not all the time, sorry, once a term. Even the 18-year-old who's just left home, I'll still find a way of asking him this. I'll rephrase it, obviously, as he's changing and playing sport at a different level. But what do you want from me on game day and training day? So And that's really to help them be able to set the car journey narrative. Like I've said to you before, there are times that I'm strict with my kids. There are times they have to tidy up, do their homework, join in with family chores. But on the way to their sport, that's their time. So one of my children likes to be everywhere super early, and that's just something we've had to learn. That's part of their mental preparation. Or if they get there late, then that really mucks them up. So we deliberately try and get there as early as we can do. So think about asking your kids this question so you can set the narrative, but particularly if you're a coach, okay? Particularly if you're a coach. And you ask this at the beginning of the season, and what do you want from me as your coach? And how can I be your dad or your mum and dad and coach? How do I juggle that? Listen to them, try and get their answers. The challenge with asking that as coach is you can get some brutal feedback. What I do is this. I'm my kids' church youth leader. I coach them at hockey. So what I do is I say, when I get back in the car after a session, I say, I'm taking my coach hat off. I'm putting my dad hat on. How was the coach tonight? And sometimes they'll just say, you're fine. And sometimes I'll get some real encouragement. And sometimes I will get absolutely caned by them. And that's where you just have to have broad shoulders, take it on the chin. Because I think for me, that's really helped me maintain an open flow of relationship and discussion with my kids, because they've had the confidence to be able to share honestly how they're feeling. So express pride or love, ask the question. Thirdly, learn to sit with pain. Okay, learn that pain is not a bad thing. It's not easy for us parents to see our children in pain, but the first thing we do when we see our children in pain is we tend to fix it with a knee-jerk reaction of, no, you were great today, or it was the coach, or it was the opposition, or it was the ref, rather than letting them sit with pain, putting our hand on their shoulder, letting them cry a bit, and then when they're ready, when they've come out of that kind of deep wave of pain, starting to have a conversation with them. And no parent ever gets that time scale right between when do you go and have a conversation when they're in that deep valley of pain. But yes, learn to try and sit with pain more than you rush in to fix it. And notice around you in the coming months how quickly people rush to fix people in pain rather than just letting them be in pain. And actually what people want is companionship. They don't want fixing, because it hurts, and it isn't going to be fixed by a McDonald's or something like that, but it is going to be made easier by having companionship, and that's what we offer. And then when they're ready, seek progress. So how might you improve? How might you make that better? Or even if they've been successful, oh, you look really united as a team today. Well, how might you do that again next week? What led to you being really closely knitted together? I wonder how you might work on that together as a team. So seeking progress isn't just when it goes wrong. It's a rhythm, but it starts with that foundation of I love you unconditionally. I want to express pride and love in you. I'm going to let you set the narrative around how you find my behaviour helpful or not. I watch rugby from behind the posts because I find it far easier to watch the game. But I learned very quickly from my son, he only ever wants me to stand behind the posts that his team are attacking, not defending. He found it really intimidating to have his dad standing behind him as he was trying to defend. So it's just little things like that that meant that I could still enjoy the game, but it was an easier experience for him. But then also seeking progress. And I find that most teenagers are better at being more analytical and asking for your advice when they get a bit older. When they're younger, they may ask for it because you're their hero. And often what happens then is parents give loads of unsolicited, unhelpful advice. But when they get a bit older, they will start to reflect with you if you build a good foundation in there. And I think I've put there, we just need to be super realistic. Okay, we need to be they're children. They're going to make loads of mistakes. And that's just part of their journey. And then when they hit teenager years and their bodies change, remember what that was like. You can be really uncoordinated one day. You can be called fat like Harry Kane and then go on to be the top national goal scorer. So there's all sorts of challenges going on, and we just need to be realistic and let them be children. The adult teams that we follow aren't perfect. Let's not put that on the children. So we've talked about conversations, we've talked about kind of nurture, we've talked about conversations, and I want to just focus on this. Potential growth focused rather than results focused. Okay. Which team has learnt more? One team has had an undefeated season. One under 11s or under 13s team has had an undefeated season. One team has had mixed results. Which team has learnt more? What do you reckon? Oh, you're all very good. No one's trying to mess with my mind and put undefeated. Yeah, of course. We know intuitively that if kids have mixed experiences, they're learning more from that. Well, here's a top tip for you. If you don't want to get life really wrong, when your son gets selected or asked to go for county trials, and one of the coaches knows who you are and comes over to you on the sideline and says, "Oh, hi, Rich, how are you doing?" And the coach was trying to suck up to me. And he said to me, "Oh, I coach this team and we've been undefeated for the last 3 seasons." I just said to him, "I just think that's really bad coaching." And he said to me, "I don't want to coach losing into these kids." I was like, "You're not going to coach. The kids are going to lose. You have to coach. You're not going to coach losing into them. You're going to coach how to deal with loss. That's what your aim is to help them journey." Because I don't know about you, friends, but I find adult life has a ton of really uncomfortable losses in. And if we don't help our kids learn how to grow that resilience and confidence through loss as children, and I always talk about Premiership football clubs. So like Spurs, who I do a bit of work with, they will take their under 13s and play someone like Leyton Orient's under 15s, okay, knowing full well that they're going to get beaten. They're going to physically, they're probably going to get like beaten up in inverted commas. They're going to lose the game, but the coaches prep the player. Listen, next week we've got a really difficult game. It's on purpose because we want you to experience this. We want you to learn how to handle this. And so they deliberately put in mixed results so that the kids are having a good mixed strategy, but they're really supportive around it. They don't just leave the kids to deal with it and laugh at them and shame them for their loss. They do it in a supportive, constructive way to help them move forward. Now, I'm conscious we're coming into land. We won't worry about that question. Just very quickly, I went to do some work with Gloucester Rugby under 18s, and I asked them a question. Can anyone work out what the question is? Do you want to try and put that in the chat? Or unmute, because there's not too many. Unmute. What do you think the question was? Have a look at the answers. What do you think the question was? Anyone have a guess?
Why do you play?
Yeah, why do you
Yes,
play sport?
perfect. Yeah, totally. So in that context, why do you play rugby? These are under 18 lads. Some of them have professional contracts. Some of them were England players. And look at that answer in the middle. Massive enjoyment, fun. There's 2 on there that I think are really sad. The first is to exert my anger. While sport is good for your mental health, I don't think you should do it to exert your anger. And the saddest one on there at the bottom is to make my dad proud. Okay. And our kids will all take part in sport for different reasons. My kids all had those swimming lessons where, they had to learn how to swim because if we went on holiday, I didn't want them to drown in a river or whatever. So but they all approach their swimming lessons really differently. Caleb, do you remember I said his super strength was hard work? Every swimming lesson he had from 4, he would swim every length as hard as he could. He'd finished every swimming lesson bright red face because he punished himself in the swimming pool. He's done that all his life as he works out in the gym and things like that. Jess, a real socialite. So for her, swimming lessons were all about the chatting with their mates. So she would chat to her friends and let other people go ahead of her. So rather than do the length that the teacher had. So it's the only time I've really shouted at her from the sideline because I was fed up of paying money and just seeing her sit there and chat rather than learning to swim. And Anya, because she was a gymnast, super precise, real perfectionist. She was almost ballet-esque the way she would swim each length. And that's 3 children with the same DNA collection, but do sport for very, very different reasons. And there'll be kids that you coach right now who you will tear your hair out because you'll be like, oh, they're so talented. They could, if they just put a bit more effort in or whatever. But actually, they're enjoying it. They're getting what they want out of sport. And that might be the same for your children. And I think one of the biggest challenges for us as parents, but if we can get this challenge right, is to understand why our kids do their sport and plug into that. And sometimes they'll know, our children will, and sometimes they won't. So we tend to learn this by observing them and seeing what gives them that buzz. We can then help them grow and nurture who they are through sport by helping them fuel the reason that they do it. I'm gonna stop there. I hope you found that helpful.